Welcome to the Neophyte in the Woods podcast with Andrew McDowell.
Welcome back to another episode of Neophyte in the Woods podcast. I am your host, Andrew. We are, as always, proud members of the Change Your POV podcast network. This week is a continuation of last week. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, go back and do it right now. We'll wait. Okay, done it? Great. So we're picking up where we left off, talking to my buddy Jason Crighton about archery, bow hunting, and what you need to do as a beginner. Before we go in here, I just want to make two kind of references. I'm still raising money for the Kids Cancer Buzz-Off. I'll put a link to the fundraiser in this episode description. And second, if you haven't already, I would strongly encourage you to go check out Average Hunter's St. Jude's auction. Every year he raises a lot of money for a great charity that helps a lot of kids, much in this same vein that I do, but he raises a lot more money than I do, which is awesome, and I really commend him for it. He's also doing raffle tickets for a very nice bow and or crossbow. So I'd really strongly suggest everybody go check that out. He's only selling 200 tickets for the bow and the crossbow, and I already have 4 tickets. So they're going fast, and it's a great chance to win a great bow, which is topical given this conversation, but also help out a lot of really needy kids. So thanks for listening, and let's get back to Jason.
So and okay, let's go to another subject that I think is potentially controversial. Not in a bad way. There are 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, a bunch of schools of thought on scent control. I know people who do none at all, like literally zero. They walk to their stands smoking cigarettes. I know people who literally bathe in tinks, or at least wash their clothes with it, because they have a washer and dryer just for getting ready for hunting season. I know people who, like me, who put some tinks out, take a shower with scent-free stuff before going out. I have people who do some combination of all of it. My assumption, based on our conversation, is that the scent control work is just as important, if not more so, to the archery hunter as it is to the gun hunter.
That I'm going to answer that with a different aspect that is more important, and that is wind direction. Okay. So I've been the guy that doesn't worry about scent control. I've been the guy that does worry about scent control. I've hunted with a lot of guys that, like you said, they will smoke cigarettes on their stand. If the wind is not blowing towards the deer, if you're smoking a cigarette, they're probably not going to know that you're there. But if the wind is blowing to them and there's some scent, if it doesn't cause them to run away, it's going to at least put them on high alert, which in archery season with a bow is more of an issue than with a gun because it takes longer for the arrow to get there. So I personally am more worried about the wind direction than I am my scent control. However, I do use a scent spray. I take scent-free. I use scent-free showering materials. I do use the scent crusher bag that uses ozone to kill the bacteria on your clothes. So, and I do think it helps, but personally, wind direction is by far more important than anything else, in my opinion.
Okay. And what, other than, feeling the wind on your face or on your back or coming from the left or coming to the right, like what strategy and tactics do you use to play the wind?
I use the weather apps. That's the big thing.
Okay.
See what the prevailing direction of the wind's coming from. And I use that when I set up my tree stands to figure out where I want to sit. I keep tree stand businesses in business by having a ridiculous amount of stands because I'll put out 2 or 3 stands in one location based on wind direction.
Okay. And how far are those 2 or 3 stands spaced? Are they like within trees of each other, or are they within 100 yards, or
between 20 and 50 yards typically?
Okay.
And the reason why I do that is because even with the weather apps, and they're telling you what way the prevailing wind is going. And I don't know what it's like in Massachusetts, but in Pennsylvania, especially north central where our cabin's located, it's very hilly terrain. I won't say mountainous, but we do have ridges and valleys and that are pretty steep sometimes. And that all affects how the wind comes through. So it might be a west wind, but depending on where you're sitting, it might actually shift to a north wind by the time it gets to you a little bit before it goes back to west. So I like to have a couple different stand options. So what I do is in the off season, when I'll look at the weather and it will say a west wind, and I'll actually go out with the little smoke bottles. They just have a little powder in them that you puff and some powder comes out like smoke, and see from this stand location, what way is the wind going on a west wind? And then go out there on a north wind. What happens when it does this? So that way I get a better understanding of where the wind is actually headed.
Okay. And that's interesting because Massachusetts is a widely varied state. Eastern Massachusetts, where I hunt, there are hills. There's big hills, but it's not mountainous. Especially where I hunt. I think that there's one large hill, and we're talking 50 or 60 feet of elevation gain, like all told, maybe 100. Western Massachusetts is like Western Pennsylvania. It's more mountainous. Where I wouldn't call it's not like the West, right, where you have huge 1,000-foot increases in terrain.
Real mountains,
yeah. These are Eastern weakling mountains. It's along the Appalachian Mountain Trail, so it's in the Appalachian Mountains, like all that. They're mountains, but they're not. It's not Everest, and so where I'm at, I don't worry about wind changing too much. It doesn't swirl, it doesn't gust, it doesn't do that stuff. The wind direction is pretty much the wind direction. But then again, I don't have to deal with wacky directions with it boiling off the saddle or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, and that makes it a little easier to understand what way the wind's going. Another thing that that a lot of people are starting to talk about are thermals, where in the morning, you have thermals that are rising because the earth is heating up from the sun, so it's carrying your scent up, and then in the evening, it's thermals are going down. It's not something I've ever paid attention to because I never actually thought about it. I'm trying to pay attention to it now, but most of my stand locations aren't areas where I'd have to really worry about thermals too much.
Sure.
But it's something that I am trying to sort of look into to see. When it comes to hunting, the more information you have, the better prepared you're going to be. And that's really expanded upon when it comes to archery season. So I look into everything as much as I can.
Yeah, it's one of those. The deer have the important advantage in that you're never going to really beat their nose. You might confuse them a little bit, but you're never. At the end of the day, they're going to smell you. Is basically what my opinion is.
Well, and you have to think about when we're hunting deer, we're basically going into their house.
Yep.
So any little change is going to get them, curious and on edge. It'd just be like if all of a sudden I decided to start hunting you, and all of a sudden, you smell something different in your living room, you're going to think something's not right here.
Yep.
It's the same thing for deer.
Yeah, that's a good kind of comparison. It's like, I think that, I'm a pretty heavy sleeper, but my wife, like, if something changes in the house, whether it's the cats knock something over or an unusual, we live on a moderately busy street. If a car comes by at a time that there shouldn't be a car, like there's traffic all night, but like for whatever reason, she can figure out when there's an extra car coming down the street. I imagine it's the same thing with a deer.
Yes.
So, I think that the next logical place for us to take this conversation is talking about practice, right? So theoretically in this person, they've picked out their bow, they have their accessories, they have their arrows, they know what broadheads they're going to use, they have their field points, like they're all set. What should they do to practice? Like, what are the skills, the knowledge, the specialties? Like, what should they be focusing on at the beginning? Like, obviously accuracy matters, but how do you train that? How do you train for that? Is that something that you need to work with somebody at your archery club or at your range or your mentor to figure out what you need? Or are there some set things that you can do in your experience to kind of make it successful?
So the first thing that I would recommend anyone do is a drill called the blind bail. And that's basically, like, personally, I would use the big round bale, hay bale. You can just use a big wall. You only stand maybe 10 feet away. You're only about 3 or 4 yards away. And the only thing that you're focused on is your form. So when you actually draw back, you would actually close your eyes. Try to just stand straight and work on your form and just shoot, not worrying about where your arrow is going. You're close enough that you should be hopefully hitting the big area of the target. All you're worried about is just keeping your form consistent.
Okay.
Now, if you have a mentor or an archery club, someone that knows proper form, have them watch you so that they can sort of give you some tips. That's a great thing to do. If you don't have that option, use your phone, video yourself, and just see if you're changing from shot to shot. The perfect archery form is, feet about shoulder width apart, standing straight up. Your arm is, if you're shooting straight, would be parallel to the ground. The arm you're holding your bow, you don't want to have a tight grip on it. You want to have your shoulders pulled back, almost like you're trying to hold an egg between your shoulder blades. And then it's a nice smooth, depending on what release you pick, a nice smooth release where you don't move your front arm. You're not bent forward, all that stuff. I've seen a lot of really good archery shooters that have terrible form compared to textbook style. The key is being consistent. Whatever you do it the same every single time.
Gotcha. So, there's similarities there to shooting with a firearm, right?
Absolutely.
It's consistent repetition of posture, hold, grip, all that.
Yep.
And presumably you're not shooting on the move like you would be if you're shooting IDPA or IPSC or USPSA or something like that. So all you have to do is focus on your form, which is, I'm going to assume, is exponentially more difficult when you see something that can feed your family for the year.
100%.
Yep.
100%.
So how do you train for that? How do you control for the adrenaline? When I run, like, not very well or very fast or very far or very long, but like I'll jog, around the bay when I'm shooting, just to get my heart going a little bit, my breathing a little bit faster. Like, does that work with it, or do you have to do the Olympics are going on right now, so I'm watching a ton of biathlon. Like those guys, like, they don't slow down their heart rate, but they can control their breathing. Like,
yep, that is exactly what you can do. You can either run, you can do jumping jacks, you can do some push-ups, anything to get your heart rate up. And then as soon as you're done getting you get your heart rate up, pick up your bow and try to shoot. That mimics close to what the same sort of feeling is. So that's a great drill to do. What a lot of archers notice, and if you ever would watch, competitive shooting, all the guys take practice shots before the competition starts. The idea is get loose, get ready. Unfortunately, you don't have that option whenever you're hunting. So, you're always taking a cold shot whenever you're hunting. So I like to do what I call one and done. If I have some yard work to do, I'll wake up in the morning, I'll go outside, I'll shoot one arrow at the target. And then I might work or, cut the grass or rake leaves for an hour or two, and then I'll go and shoot one arrow at the target. The idea is making that first shot that you shoot the best one that you shoot all day. Now, personally, it's really cold outside right now. And being newly married, I don't have the time right now to shoot in the league at my local archery club. So I haven't been shooting a whole lot. Once it starts to warm up, I'll do what I consider mass shooting, which is shooting 3 arrows in a round, trying to shoot anywhere from 10 to 20 rounds in a day. And that's just trying to keep my form and trying to just work on being as accurate and consistent as I can. As I get closer to the season, I cut that down. And I'd say for the last month, before the season rolls around, I'll do that one and done shooting. I'll even wake up to go to work, and before I actually go to work, go to the backyard, take a shot, and then put my bow away, and then go to work, to try to mimic that idea of I'm making a cold shot.
And when you're doing this practice, the one and done shooting, maybe not during the week, right, when you're doing it right before work, but on the weekends, do you put on what you're going to wear in the woods? I know that, when you talk to guys who are like hardcore into Sitka gear, right? I mean, it's great stuff. I love it. If Sitka's listening and wants to send me some, I'll take it. I'll make sure we get you cut in too. But like the stuff I have is for gun hunting, right? I don't worry about a string getting caught. Do you practice with your clothes?
Absolutely, yeah. I do it about a week before the season starts. And you just do it just so that you don't, when you go to draw on a deer, you don't get caught with, because it happened to me this summer where I got binoculars, some wonderful Vortex optics binoculars that if they want to send stuff, we can split that.
Sounds good.
So I had in my mind I was going to just wear them, but I wanted to make sure I could shoot. Well, it turned out whenever I drew back and I looked down, they were going where they were sitting on my chest. They were going to be in the way of the string. So I had to adjust the strap to make sure that they were low enough that they wouldn't be in the way. So that's something you want to definitely think about. Now, as far as like my clothes are concerned, I've had the same hunting clothes for the last 3 years that I use in archery season. So I know that it works. So I don't have to do that. It's only if I add or do, buy something new. But it is a good idea to do it just to make sure that, even something like the gloves that you're going to wear aren't going to mess up how your form is. So yes, absolutely. I highly suggest taking at least a couple shots just so you're comfortable and confident that you're still accurate in the clothes you'll be wearing in that situation.
So, and this is backtracking a little bit. And I want to ask this question because I'm interested about it. I found that marksmanship is obviously a perishable skill. If you're not shooting or dry firing or regularly, interacting with your weapon, your form, that stuff diminishes quickly. Is it the same thing for archery?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
100%.
And do you see yourself losing your form, your consistency in archery quicker than you do? Because I know you shoot, you have your Win Mag that you're taking out west.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which do you lose faster in your experience?
I seem to be naturally a better archer than I have ever been a gun shooter.
Okay.
So shooting with a gun, I need to practice that more for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
What I've noticed is I typically take time off. One, I don't shoot as much as I normally would during hunting season because the time I would spend shooting, I'm sitting in the woods and waiting for a deer to walk by.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of shooting time lost there. And then I typically take the month of January where I don't shoot at all.
Sure.
For the most part, that's the end of the hunting season for us in the middle of January, and I'm sort of run down and just need to take a second for a breather. What I've noticed when I pick the bow back up around this time or in the next week or so is that every year it takes me a little longer back to what I consider accurate at a known distance.
Mm-hmm.
So with archery. So as I get older, it's just taking me longer to get back to that point.
Okay. That's interesting because I've noticed, like, I do the same thing. I take a layoff. I don't, after our deer season ends on New Year's Eve. So, or, whatever the closest Saturday to it, because Sunday hunting. I get home, I take off my hunting clothes, I throw them in the corner, I take off my hunting boots, I put them on top of my clothes. I don't care if the cats get at it. I come home, I clean my shotgun, I clear my black powder, I do whatever I'm going to do. I put them away, I oil them, and I don't think or talk or except to complain, complain about something or kind of figure something out to myself. I don't even think about it for a month or two. But, February, March starts to roll around, and I pick up my shotgun or I pick up my black powder. And for me, at least, I'm in the exact opposite. I don't lose the precision from gun shooting as quick as I do other stuff like golf.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think it's interesting that it seems to be what you're naturally, what A, you either have more experience with, or B, you seem to have better muscle memory for the things that you're maybe a little bit more passionate about or focused on.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is going to be naturally inclined to be better at some things than others. For me, it's archery, but I still do notice that there is a little bit of a time when I first pick it back up where it's like, okay, I got to remember how I did this, to be accurate and be consistent with my shots.
And is that a purely physical process for you, or do you have, like, when I'm focusing on practicing something in one of the shooting disciplines, I'll take a video of me doing it as perfectly as I'm physically able to do it, and then look at that to kind of remind me visually what I should be doing, and then use that to kind of school myself? Or is it for you, at least, the muscle memory comes back the more you do it?
The muscle memory comes back the more I do it, but I do have a video on my phone that I'll look at and I'll try to remind myself. For me, I use a lot of mental and visualization drills, and that goes back to my college baseball playing days. Visualizing success, and I'll actually do that if I happen to know the stand that I'm going to be hunting in the night before. I will actually do the visualization before I fall asleep, and then regardless, whenever I decide to get into whichever stand I pick, as soon as I get up there, the first thing I'm doing is, without holding my bow, holding my form in the various spots that I expect deer to come, and visualizing releasing an arrow into that spot and having it kill. Some people, I know a lot of people swear by visualization drills. I'm one of them because I've seen the success from them.
Yes.
I know I have family members that think I'm totally crazy when I'm doing it. It's just like anything else. If you think it works for you and you think it's making you more successful, you do it.
I think that's right on. For me, just personally, I'm in the same I almost take it a step further, where I'm not only visualizing the shot I'm going to take, I'm visualizing exactly the scenario that's going to happen. From where I see the deer to what kind of deer it is to what the light is like. In my head when I'm driving to the woods, I'm thinking the deer's going to come from my east and it's going to be a doe and she's going to do this, that, and the other, and I'm just wargaming out every single step that I'm going to take.
Yeah, I up at my cabin, my family laughs at me, but I'm the guy that sits there the night before and says, well, okay, I'm going to go to this stand, and at 9:02, I'm going to see this buck coming from this direction, and it's going to be this buck from the trail cam pictures, and it's going to walk this far away, and I'm going to shoot it, and it's going to run this far, and I will tell out the exact scenario. Now, unfortunately, this season, none of those scenarios came true, but that's just part of that mental and visualization that I do to prepare me for when that situation presents itself or something similar.
Yeah, I think that this goes back to like that karma thing we were talking about before. I think it's the power of positive visualization. Like if you put it out there and you almost will it into existence.
Right, exactly. And actually the first year that I really took up archery season, retook it up after a layoff through college. I actually the night before watched a hunting show where a guy missed a buck because it dropped. So they call it jumping the string, where the chest goes down, the arrow goes over top of it. I watched it the night before, and I didn't really think anything of it. And then that next evening, I missed a buck with the exact same scenario. So in my mind, I wonder, like, did that seep into my head that was going to happen? I almost willed that to happen. So now I try to always visualize that success for scenarios so that, like you said, try to will that into existence, will it to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I tried so hard for that this year. It just didn't work. So.
Yep, me too. Me too. Unfortunately, the deer were smarter than me this year.
Yeah, or they were willing, not getting shot in the chest a little bit more than you were willing to shoot them in the chest.
That very well could have been.
So we're going to have to start earlier and harder this year.
Yes. Well, this year I didn't take a break from thinking about hunting. It's amazing how a lack of success will do that to you.
Yep. Yeah, I think I was driving my wife a little bit insane, not quite being 100% present all the time because I was thinking about it. So I New Year's Eve, I turned it off. I said, honey, I'm done. Put my stuff away. And I'm literally just now starting to think about hunting again.
Yeah, my wife wasn't so lucky this year.
You'll learn. Having a kid really helps you.
I'm
you
sure
focus
that
on the other
will
stuff.
be a big impact. Yeah.
Yep. That's also something to look forward for you. So we've talked here for coming up on 90 minutes. I want to be sensitive. It's obviously a school night. So I want to be sensitive to your time. I want to kind of give you the opportunity if there's a parting thought or a word of advice or a suggestion that you might have for somebody starting out, with archery hunting, me. What's the best advice you could give?
Well, I'm going to give you two.
Okay.
One is just one more drill that a lot of people don't think about is shooting longer than your comfortable distance, and as far as hunting's concerned. And that's part of that too, is having that max distance in mind. So for me, my max distance is about 35 yards. It's typical that throughout the summer, I'll practice out to 50 yards. Because anything that you do wrong at 50 yards is magnified compared to 20 or 30 or even 40 yards. So when you practice at longer distances, it makes you a better shooter at the shorter distances that you actually want to shoot when you're in a hunting situation. But my biggest piece of advice, and this is the thing that I struggle with, so maybe this is why I'm saying it to you so I can say it to myself, is to have fun with it. I spend a lot of time thinking about, am I in the right stand? These are the conditions. Where should I be? take, when you get in the woods, just take the time to soak in what the woods have to offer. Don't be fixed on the results of success. Be fixed and, as your wife wants you to be present in the hunting moment and take it for what it is, a great experience every time that you walk into the woods.
That's awesome. Yes, that's amazing advice, and something that I know I struggle with, and I think a lot of the folks out there do. I think it comes down to not losing the forest for the trees, with no pun intended.
100%. I mean, it's hard not to get consumed with all that whenever, between social media and hunting shows and everything. We place, as hunters, we're placing a high importance on antler size and, whether you shot a deer or not. But, really it's the one thing we all have in common, no matter if you're going for a mature buck or a trophy class buck or, just a small buck or a doe. The one thing we have in common is we're in the woods. So I think we all need to sort of focus on just being in that moment and just enjoying the fact that we're out there.
Yeah, that's profound. I think it's I don't think I could have said it better myself.
And like I said, it's something I struggle with, so I think I'm telling myself that too.
Well, when wood season comes around again and we're out there, we'll just play this last little bit of the podcast over and over again.
Sounds perfect. Put it on a loop for hours, and I'll listen to it while I'm in the woods.
Yes, exactly. My friend, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me tonight, and I really do appreciate the time and all the support and advice that you give.
No, thank you. Great. Always willing to talk hunting and the outdoors.
Awesome. Well, we still need to do a debrief on deer season, which we didn't formally do. So let's do a combo. All right.
Sounds good.
So we're gonna do a combo. We're gonna do turkey season and deer season all together, and just talk about how things went, and hopefully we'll both have a turkey on the ground.
I hope so too.
In a couple of months.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. It's Andrew from Neophyte in the Woods. Just popping in real quick. Wanting to do a quick kind of bumper out here. We here at Neophyte in the Woods and the Change Your POV Network do this all out of the goodness of our hearts. We legitimately love and are passionate about the subjects about which we speak. However, that doesn't mean that we're not absorbing some costs. And one of the ways we're trying to address the overhead costs associated with putting out these podcasts is to do Patreon. And you can find a link to it right down at the bottom in the kind of the episode show notes on our website. If you could donate anything that you're able to support us and help us get this content coming out to you, it would be very much appreciated. There are tiers of membership from $1 all the way up to $10, and you can donate more than that. For our backers, our Patreon patrons, we do offer some unique content. We've been doing weekly shows where we do a live stream and we talk about a quote on Mondays. It's normally right around 8 p.m. Eastern. There's also some other cool rewards, including the level at which I back at $10 a month. You can actually get, believe it or not, a signed autographed picture of our fearless leaders, Bennett and Eddie. It really changed my life. It sits actually right up above the computer where I record all this stuff. I take it with me when I go hunting. I take it with me when I go fishing. I take it with me when I go to work. It goes everywhere with me. Some people have an EDC pocket knife. I have an EDC picture of Bennett and Eddie. I would really strongly suggest you back us and keep the good work that we're doing coming. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting us on Patreon. Thanks for leaving us reviews on iTunes. And we'll talk to you next week.